I've never done a Google Hangout before, but here we are living in the actual future. So yeah, my name is Ben Blaine, and I'm a filmmaker. I'm nearly finished shooting my debut feature film, which is called Nina Forever, and that may be the last time I mention it, as it's not what we're supposed to be talking about. It's very good. It's called Nina Forever. If you go to ninaforever.com, anyway. But yeah, no, we're actually here to talk about The Joy of Six, which is a fantastic collection of short films put together by the New British Cinema Quarterly. And one of the things I think is particularly fascinating about what the NBCQ are doing is they're taking this programme around the country and showing them in various cinemas up and down the country, and they're bringing the filmmakers and various other people involved in making the films to those audiences, so that the audience really gets a chance to kind of meet and interact with the people behind those films. And I guess this is also another part of that process. So joining us electronically as a hologram, we have Romola Garai, who is one of the directors. That was her waving. I presume you can see all of this. This is, wow, it's the future. I don't understand it. And then actually with me in the room, which is something I can just about comprehend, we have Douglas Hart. Hello. Look at that. We have Chris Foggin. Hello. We have Dan Sully. Hello. And skulking at the back from Little White Lies, we have the marvellous David Jenkins. Look at that. So let's kick things off with just a quick question to each of you about your project. So Dan, your film is a conversation, basically. It's two people sat in a restaurant, for want of a better term, having a chat. Can you talk us through the writing process and your intentions in making a film that was so driven by the dialogue?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I come from a background making music videos, and so this film for me was, it needed to tick certain boxes. Like, I needed this film to have character and dialogue in it. I knew that straight out of the gate. I knew that I didn't want it just to be a visual piece, because I've kind of done that, and I needed to show that I could do this other thing. So I knew that there had to be dialogue in it, and I thought, well, if it's a short film, then wouldn't it be nice if it was, just a conversation between two people, nice and contained. But I also didn't want the film to be just that. I wanted it to live and breathe a little bit, so it wasn't just a suffocating two-hander in one room. And so then I thought, well, if we've got two guys talking about something or telling a story, then we can kind of cross-cut between them sitting there in the restaurant and what they're talking about. And so that's kind of how that form kind of took shape.
Starving.
Tell me about it. What you got?
Burger.
Oh, man.
What?
Oi!
What are you moaning about?
Okay, right. You ain't gonna believe this, because I didn't believe it at first, but I swear it's true, because Ash said he heard the same
What are you
thing.
talking to Ash for, man?
Look, you know that kid who got stabbed last month?
Yeah, I heard about it, but I didn't know him.
Yeah, but you heard about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, after he got stabbed, the guys who stabbed him let him get away. Too busy arguing like idiots.
And Chris, you have, this is a question sent to us by Sammy Woodward on Twitter. So if Sammy Woodward is watching this, this is your big moment. You've got Judi Dench in your film.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And what was she like to work with? And I really hope that you say that she was horrible, because everyone always says that about her. It was like there's that story about her tackling someone with a knife. Did that happen to you?
Unfortunately, I'm going to disappoint you and say that she is the most delightful person I've ever met and fortunate to work with. How it came about is I work as an assistant. I started off as a runner and now an assistant director in film and television, and I've worked with Judy on various projects, and such as Cranford and Jane Eyre, and then I was on a film directed about Sam and Curtis called My With Marilyn, where I just said to her one day, would you like to make a short film with me? And she said, yes, what's the idea? And I said, I don't have one just yet. And then kind of with her blessing went away. Met with Chris Croucher, who wrote a wonderful script, and about 8 or 9 months after Judy agreed, we were turning over in a house in England. So, but she was incredibly supportive. I can't say enough good words about her. Absolutely beautiful, delightful woman. So I'm sorry, Sammy. Was
she at a fade with Facebook?
She wasn't, and that was kind of that was kind of it. Where with Judy's blessing, then it was trying to find a nice idea that would challenge her, because it was going to be as always a huge daunting experience for me to kind of walk on set on that morning with Judy Denstead and try to direct her. So I kind of wanted to find, and with Chris we managed to find an idea that would challenge her. So leading up to making the film, I was fortunate enough to rehearse with her down at her house, and kind of and she asking questions like, what does LOL mean and all that, and I'd like to think on that Saturday morning when we shot it, she was as nervous as me, if not a little bit more. But yeah, that was I wanted to do something that would challenge her, so she knew nothing about it. And I don't know whether she's still. I think maybe the account that we created is on Facebook, but she's not on Facebook, unfortunately.
She's on Twitter. She's called Sammy Woodward on Twitter.
Trevor. Nice name. How old?
Oh, 60-ish, it's hard to tell. Oh. He's a real fox, though.
Hey, have you made friends with him yet?
Yeah, I have, actually.
Oh.
Here you go. Boom.
Oh. Would you follow him on Twitter?
Yeah, I have, actually. His tweets are very good. They're very witty. Better than Stephen Fry.
Oh.
So, Romola, this question has come in from Becky Shears, who I noticed earlier on Twitter was very excited about this happening. So I hope you can answer this one for her. She'd like to know about your own experiences as an actor and how these have informed your directing style, and how any of the directors you've worked with may have influenced you.
None of them. No, I was very lucky to have been directed by lots of different directors with lots of different styles, some which I liked, some which I didn't as an actor. But I have to say that my sort of overriding experience of having directed myself is that it makes you much more understanding of directors and the difficulties that they face, because of course you're presented with a whole variety of different actors who in fact all want to be directed in completely different ways. So it's never just that there's a mismatch between a director and an actor's interpretation of how they want to be directed. It's that the director is constantly having to kind of tailor the way that they're directing to different people. So I would say I was kind of most influenced by the people that I'd worked with that were particularly open to actors, in that they would allow them to, give their ideas of how the scene should be developing, that they would inform them about how it was going to be shot. Some directors don't like to involve actors very much, which can make you feel sort of like you're, a puppet, for want of a better word. So I tried to be very sort of, enabling with my actors on my short, and and then obviously learned a lot about how difficult it is to direct as well.
Yeah, and I mean, did you find yourself, is there sort of things that you like as an actor, in sort of things that you kind of go, oh yeah, that's how I like being directed, that you find yourself desperately copying, or did you actually find, like you say, that some of the actors wanted something very different from you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I like clarity. As an actor, I really want a director to kind of know exactly what they want, and to be as specific as possible about it. I suppose that's just to do with my, your personality. I like people who are sort of very clear, strong leadership, and that's what I need. And but then, of course, I would give that to an actor I was working with on the short, and they would say, why are you telling me what to do? I want to be able to have as much freedom as possible and to be able to interpret it in my own way. And and it's complicated because, of course, your own taste as an actor wouldn't necessarily correspond with the people you're working with.
And in terms of kind of all the other stuff that being a director has with it, how prepared did you feel you were for that?
I wasn't prepared at all. I mean, I was prepared without in any way being prepared, if you know what I mean. I had a book with lots of things written in it and things cut out, and I storyboarded everything, and I came to set with a sort of, you know, like a sort of A-level student with an A4 ring binder of how to direct, and immediately had to throw it away, because I think, you know, part of the great thing about directing, if you come from an acting background, is that you know, are obviously very engaged with performers and hopefully don't have a fear of engaging with actors. But what you absolutely don't have is you have no understanding of kind of technical expertise and the way that works, and so you have to, you know, unfortunately, you know, have to learn a lot about that side of it, which is you know, which is tough, but absolutely essential unless you want to make a film that, you know, doesn't look any good.
Cool. Douglas, you've got the great Peter Mullen in your film. How did that happen? Why did you choose such an amazing actor?
I mean, it's crazy. Why did you choose him? Because he's fucking great. Really, it's a strange one, because the day that we got our very little money, we were walking back from the kind of meeting from the local council that gave us money. We were walking through Battersea Park, and I said to my producer, I want to get Peter Mullen, and she was very, you know, nice and patronising and said, yeah, great idea, but you could tell she was going, no fuck. So I just really, I don't know, I just kept coming to him. I think because my film, there's a scene at the end where there's a kind of breakdown of a certain kind of male demeanour, and I think, you know, not only Peter as an actor but as a person, it's just that I just kept thinking that wouldn't it be great to see him crumble at the end, you know? So really that's the reason why I chose him, and he was very kindly, I mean, I wrote him a letter first of all through his agent, and he wrote back, you know, within a few days saying thanks for please send the script, and then 2 days after I sent the script, he replied in a 5-word email that said fucking superb, count me in. So it just shows you, just ask. You know? Yeah. But it's interesting what you're saying about the morning I was walking up to meet him really for the first time, which is the day of the shoot, and I was kind of had the nerves that perhaps I've all had, because I've never really worked with actors per se. And I wondered, you know, so I was excited but trepidatious. And so he walked into the room and he came towards me. I thought he was going to stick the head in me, but he actually took me in his arms and he held me for a minute, but like really, not just one of those patty things in the back, like, and every single kind of nerve in my body just evaporated, so I have to thank him for it.
Jack, it's 5 to 3, we're not going to watch The Queen.
Fucking joking me, woman. Since when did I ever watch The Queen? I hate the fucking bitch. You want to listen to the fucking radio? In there. What the fuck's the Queen gonna say? Lazy bitch.
Cool.
Douglas, can I ask you a quick question about? I'd be really interested to know about how you like your film is kind of very simply shot, and it's very the shot that you use is this very immaculately framed shot. And I wondered if you could talk us through how long did it take you to sort of get the shot?
Well, I guess that I did a lot of preparation and kind of honed the script. So it was when it came to the day, you know, it's a very clear idea in my mind. You know. It was I think you know, this whole film went so easily. I think it was a really terrible beginning because it never always going to go like that. So yeah, it was very. I think because of my first fiction film, I wanted it to be, and even my music video work's not like that. It's much freer. I wanted it to be very direct, and also because the story is very personal to me, because it is a true story. There's a kind of respect of these characters. So I just felt that maybe moving, like, I don't know, I just wanted to really let these people breathe in the world that they lived in, you know. So it was very, yeah, I mean, I had very clear ideas before. So the room that the parents, I mean, it's a real flat, it was so tiny anyway, you couldn't move the camera. So.
I think that's great, because there's nothing worse when you're watching a film than people moving the camera for no reason.
Yeah.
And when you've got what is quite a static thing is conversation, I think it's, you know, that's...
Yeah, it's also, I think, I mean, the other reason it inspired me to make a very short, succinct film was the Philip Larkin poem, This Be the Verse, which says in 12 lines more about a family that I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the first 4 say, they fuck you up, your mum and dad. They don't mean to, but they do. They give you all the faults they had, and that's some extra just for you. I guess, I don't know, maybe in my mind I just wanted it to take such clear and precise, direct thing. I mean, I kept coming back to it.
Yeah. I mean, is there, because actually one of the questions that come in, actually for you, Dan, but I think it'd be quite interesting, because you all have quite diverse backgrounds, but the question is, has your experience in music videos helped you make your film? Obviously, you also have experience in music videos, and you've experienced the first AD, which is a very different approach. So I think it's quite interesting to hear from all 3 of you, kind of how that has shaped this narrative film.
Yeah, I mean, I think making music videos, especially for me, I started making music videos as soon as I came out of university, so I was 21 when I came to London, and I started making music videos for independent labels and stuff like that. And really, it was kind of, I did that because it was the only way I could get money to make films, really, off record labels. And so that's how I learned to make films, to be honest. Everything that I know about filmmaking up until that point was through making music videos. So it was massively integral for me, But I think in terms of actually when it comes to the short that we're talking about, I think the music videos informed me very much in terms of the narrative stuff, the kind of the face off, and all that, but not so much with the conversation. When I was shooting the conversation, I was very aware that this was something new for me. That this is a new territory that I felt very inexperienced shooting.
Yeah.
But everything else we shot quite quickly, and I kind of knew exactly what I wanted, and I think because it was quite similar to a lot of stuff that I've done in my videos.
Yeah. And Douglas?
I think for me, I never went to film school, so that kind of was my film school. It was like an apprenticeship in the way that you learn on the job. So, I learned. I mean, it's everything that in my films is instructed from things that I learned from music videos, because I don't know any other kind of filmmaking.
Yeah. And Chris, I mean, Romola was talking about how sort of certain directors that she's worked with have influenced, at least the thought process that she had going into it. Is that the same for you from working as an AD?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been very fortunate to work with some, incredible directors, and that kind of, the Film Across Pen was the first kind of thing I did, kind of, creatively, so to speak. And I'd never done any kind of music videos before, but I'd learned kind of how to act on a set. I learned how to deal with actors, because that's what the job as a runner and a third assistant director did. And so and I just knew, how to potentially, if I could only do one thing good, was to kind of keep morale happy on set. I knew I learned from directors what was a good way to act on set, what was a bad way to act on set, and I kind of just formed that kind of thing myself. So, yeah, I think, it was just kind of, it's funny, the whole film school thing, because I kind of did a similar thing of going and studied media and all that, and then what I kind of learned, I never really learned anything then. I learned everything. If I know anything, it was all on set, so I just kind of took that onto the Film Across Pen with me. So
yeah.
That answers the question.
Can I ask one question to everyone, actually, just a quick one? I was wondering, did these films end up looking anything like that you thought they would?
Should we let Romola answer that one?
Yes.
Just to be honest, it never looked as good as I wanted it to. I think my own taste is for highly visual directors, and when you're emulating the work of somebody like Lynn Ramsey, the first piece of work that you make is not going to look like a Lynn Ramsey film. But I had an amazing DP, Kate Reed, who took all my hundreds and hundreds of images that I gave her, and all the stills and everything that I had in terms of paintings, and managed to interpret them brilliantly. And But as I say, you know, like I was saying before, learning to master the sort of technical aspects of filmmaking is not something that you're going to be able to do in a few weeks or months. So it was very much, you know, a first piece of work for me. And what I wanted to achieve in terms of trying to keep a sort of stillness and a space in the environment, keeping quite a condensed colour palette and inside the house, and then obviously having quite a sort of lush and rich external world in the countryside. I think I was able to achieve those sort of basic goals, but yeah, it's always hard to keep your ambitions limited on a first piece.
I think, you know, any film that you make in music videos, that, you know, in a way you have an idea in your head and you learn that it evolves and it's never going to be the way, you know, it never is. I mean, obviously you're trying to get close to that point, but you discover things along the way that can add to that. So, yeah, I'd say this, but strangely, this is probably more like closer to what I had in mind than anything I've ever done, but that was an accident. Not by any kind of talent.
I think you can be clever when you're writing. I think, and a lot of the time it's through experience, knowing how to write a script that you can definitely execute. If you try and be too ambitious at the writing side of things, then you're probably more likely to be disappointed when you get your rushes back.
What do you mean by ambitious?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm really just talking about the idea of matching the budget, I guess, a lot of the time. Like, but if you know how much money you've got and you can write to that budget, then I think that you're going to be less likely to be disappointed when you get your rushes back. I think that's just something that you learn from experience.
Yeah. I think looking back on it as a film now, it's funny. Like everyone may sit here and agree. You kind of look at it now and you go, if I did that tomorrow, I would change that 100%. The finished film, I've got. It's funny, like it's kind of what Romola was saying. Is you have all these ideas going into it, and you're 100% prepped, and you go, I know exactly what I'm going to do. These are all the setups. You devise this shot list, and I too had a wonderful cinematographer. And you think I am 100% prepped, and I remember then I kind of got lost in the moment. Judy came on set, we rehearsed, and the first day they came to me and said, "Okay, what's the first setup?" And I was like, "I don't know." But you know, it's kind of I agree with Romola. Like I kind of looking at it as a film now, I've got the colour palette and all that right of how I wanted it to look. But I'd love to achieve more setups, but time plays a massive factor on these as well. You get like 2 days to do. We had I had a day and a half with Judy, and I shot the script in chronological order, and you kind of got to make sacrifices on the way.
Yeah, time's like the biggest unseen kind of factor when you're watching a film. You know, and people don't realise like that. You know, you can watch 5 short films that are all 5 minutes long. Some might have been, you know, they might have had 5-day shoots. Some might have to be shot in, I don't know, 1 day, and it's very difficult to judge all those films on a level playing field because it's time is such a huge factor when it comes to even the creativity of a film.
I quite enjoy the kind of chaos on the set, and I look forward to it. And if it wasn't there, I'd probably give up.
How long did you have that for yours?
Just 2 days.
2 days. 2 days. 2 days. 2 days. Romola?
4.
4 days.
That's 4 weeks. 4 weeks.
Question that's just come in from Tom Harrison, which I think is really interesting actually, is what was the biggest closed door that you faced in getting your short film produced? Dan, let's start with you.
Finding the right kebab shop. I know that sounds ridiculous, but we spent 2 months scouring London for a kebab shop, and until you actually start looking, it's I didn't realise that all kebab shops kind of are like long, thin, dark things, and really are not film friendly. And it's what I had in my head was actually what like more of a chicken shop looks like. You know, it's kind of like airy, like small, boxy kind of thing.
An airy chicken.
But no, so anyway, yeah, it took us about 2 months to find the right, and we were kind of almost thinking, well, is this film actually, can we make this film? We're not even sure whether this is actually going to be possible. But we found one after all that time, so.
Okay, so your biggest closed door was the closed door of a kebab shop.
What were you asking the kebab proprietors when you were going in there?
We actually, it would always start with, listen, I know this is an odd question, but you probably don't get this every day, but no, we obviously needed a certain amount of time that they needed to close their doors for.
Yeah.
And most of the owners we spoke to were like, look, we can't do that to our return customers. If we close the shop for 2 days, some people might never come back, and it might damage our business. So it was. I mean, we were offering them a location fee. You know, it wasn't really to do with that. It was all to do with their return customers and stuff like that. Yeah. But in the end, we found a really nice chap down in Stretton, and yeah, it was great. Yeah.
And Romola, what was your biggest closed door? What was the hardest thing?
I'm afraid I'm going to be really boring, and I'm going to say locations as well. Actually, yeah, it was really hard to find someone who, because I had a specific idea of the kind of house that I wanted and the way it had to look. It had to be a very clean environment. It had to be an environment that we could take a lot of the furniture out of, and you know, letting someone come into your house and take all your furniture out, you know, not everyone's going to do that. We didn't have the money for a location manager or for a large location fee, so we had to flyer, and we flyed about 250 homes in the area that we were shooting in. Then, of course, because of time, it has to be very close to all your other locations. And, you know, what I would say is if anyone out there is thinking of making a short film, write a film for a location that you can get already for free and it's close to where, you know, you live.
But never write a film that's set in your own house. That's advice from bad experience. Douglas, what was your biggest closed door?
I mean, I did go through all the flyering thing anyway, but they came out. But I'd say probably casting. I know that we got Peter within 2 weeks of getting the money, but there's only 2 other characters in mine, and it took a while, and it was right down to the wire. So.
Yeah. And what was hard about finding those actors?
Well, I guess just to find a kid, you know, to find a Scottish actor, a young kid who lived in London, it wasn't much of a choice, and it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And actually, even for the mother's part, I tried some non-professional actors, and it was an amazing lady, but it took more time, and at the end, she couldn't do it. So it's all a bit last minute, but we eventually found an amazing cast that all of this connection, unbeknownst to me, but. It was a difficult process in a way because it's my first casting for my first, fiction film. It's like, there was problems in that, especially the script readings. I mean, any actor sitting across from me reading the fucking script would have trouble. I'm like, I can't, I just, I wish that we had more time. Yeah. In a way that, when I do it next time, I'll certainly, be more conscious of that.
Yeah. And Chris, what was?
Obviously, as you'd imagine, when Judy kind of signed on, doors opened quite fast. But it was, I suppose, one kind of looking back on it, was probably dealing with the agents, like for Judy, because so you get, an overweight kid from Newcastle saying, "Oh, can you be in the short film, Judy?" And she says yes, and then kind of ring her agent to say, "Hi, we'd like Judy to be in our short film. She's agreed to be in it." Was kind of. Right. I think that I just trying to convince the agent that I didn't have a 5 minutes conversation with Judy in Waitrose. I kind of, I did actually kind of know this woman, so it was just kind of getting, convincing people, and then doors opened, and without being boring, locations was probably the main thing as well. I wanted the right house, and kind of trying to find that was an absolute nightmare. And then it got to the stage where we would speak to a location manager and say, okay, on this list of people who put their houses for films to be showing, who's the biggest Judy fan and who'll give us it for cheap? Not that this person did this. Locations, I'm going to just agree with these guys and say it was the biggest.
Cool. Oh, one interesting thing that I kind of feel slightly bound to point out is that none of you mentioned money as the biggest obstacle, and I thought that most people who are kind of like hoping to make their own short films, who are watching this, are probably kind of like slightly pulling their hair out and going, but the hardest thing I find is where is the money?
That kind of goes without saying to some extent, doesn't it? Money is always like, when you're making a short film, it's always going to be favours, and it always, to some extent.
Can I ask the actual budget question? Are we all happy to fess up about what our films cost?
Yeah. £5,000.
I don't want to get this wrong because I know the production companies spent a lot of money in festivals and all that, but I think it was at $5,000. It might be a little bit more now because of all the festivals and the costs and all that time. Without kind of getting this wrong, I don't want to upset anybody, but it's about that.
4.5 to shoot it, and then we did spend some more money on festivals, so maybe 6,000.
6,000. And Romola?
I'm not totally sure what the final budget would be. So this is with a huge proviso, but probably more like 12.
Cool. Yeah, well, for a 20-minute film, that's a hell of an achievement, to be honest. But yeah, so apparently we've only got like a minute left. So I have one last question that I want to go through very, very quickly, which comes from a Fiona somewhere in this room who is desperate to know who your first movie crush is, or was rather. So Romola, let's start with you. Who was your first movie crush?
Do you mean like directors?
Actors? Anyone?
Or do you mean like Ryan Gosling? I don't understand.
Fiona, which way are you?
Cast or directors?
Cast or directors?
First in my life.
Yeah, I think actually what I would like to know is what was the first thing that made you go, I want to make a film as a director?
I think I probably would say that as a woman, I was very, very inspired by women working in the industry, because for a long time when I was growing up, it just didn't really seem like a job that women could do. So maybe the piano. I think, seeing a film, not only a work of genius, but also a very successful film directed by a woman. That film probably came out when I was in my mid-teens. I would say that was probably a huge influence for me, and the idea that a woman could become a director and a brilliant director as well.
Cool. Dan?
I always say Heat by Michael Mann. I've got a little list of my favourite films that I wrote when I was 14 years old, and Heat was at the top of it, and all the rest of it was like Naked Gun and Hot Shots. So I'm pretty sure that was the one that kicked off.
Was this film was this an homage to Heat?
It wasn't supposed to be. Did it come across like that?
Oh, two guys having a conversation.
It was just maybe, but yeah.
I was either going to say the piano or Hot Shots. I couldn't.
It was actually Hot Shots Part 3. I didn't got it. But Heat, and then on a more kind of like underground way, Costa Rica really kind of that really like changed everything for me as well, how I saw film.
Yeah. And Douglas?
Well, both crushes came at the same time, so it was Lindsay Anderson's Film If, and Christine Noonan was the actress. That film I saw when I was 12 years old, and it blew my mind.
Yeah. And Chris?
My crush, just in case she's watching, was Cameron Diaz in The Mask. And,
yeah, she has actually tuned in. I've seen on the
and then it's a funny one. The film, I suppose, I look back on that kind of influenced me, was a Dudley Moore film called Arthur.
Yeah.
It was just kind of I watched it when I was a 13-year-old boy with my mum and dad, and me and my brother kind of didn't know what my parents were laughing at, but they found it funny as a film, and we just kind of found it funny because of the way he was acting and falling about as his drug man. So that was the kind of my first realization, of what film kind of does to bring families together. So from that point, I was like, I'd like to do something one day.
Cool.
Is that what your aim is as a filmmaker?
Arthur.
Well, to bring to
sorry. Yes. Sorry. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. The films in which I'd like to kind of mega films that maybe this might be my downfall is kind of films that bring families together and that my mum might enjoy.
Brilliant. Do we actually have to end now? I'm getting told we do. Well, that's very sad. That was my first ever Google Hangout, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, thank you very much, Dan and David and Chris and Douglas and Romola. And if you haven't already seen their films on the Joy of Six collection, then do hunt them out because it is a fantastic collection of short films. Obviously, please also go and look for NinaForever.com, which is my big. Thank you very much. Bye.
I've survived 4 accidents in the last 7 days.
So have you received actual death threats?
You know that kid who got stabbed last month?
Yeah, I heard about it, but I didn't know him.
Yeah, but you heard about it, right?
I've got to make a living too as well, you know. I've got a car to repair.
What's going on here?
Back off!
What? Trevor's logged on to chat. He's bloody well online.
Since when did I ever watch the Queen?
Is he getting married again?